Welcome to the Master Your Body podcast. This is a podcast for anyone who is interested in improving the way their body looks, feels, and moves. Working on your body can be incredibly difficult, but also very confusing and overwhelming. In this podcast, we'll separate the good stuff from the time wasters, giving you only the most valuable, useful, and actionable content to help you make progress and master your body. So whether it's building muscle and strength, losing body fat, feeling fitter, healthier, or improving your mental health, we'll cover it all here on the Master Your Body podcast. If you want more great content to help you build your body and mind, you can follow me personally on Instagram at AndyClements01 or on YouTube, I'm Andy Clements. My name is Andy Clements and welcome to the Master Your Body podcast. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Master Your Body podcast. Today is episode number, this one, I'm not sure which one it is, something like 65 or 66. But yeah, I'm pleased you're with me. I'm very happy to have you here with me. Thank you for listening. Today is New Year's Eve, 2021. And so obviously tomorrow we're going into 2022. So the kind of podcast I wanted to bring to you guys today is a little bit of a sort of a wrap up of 2021. Obviously, this is the first year we've had this podcast. It was under a different name, as you may know. To start with, it was under the Muscle Building Mastery podcast, and now we're making it into a Master Your Body podcast. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring you a bit of a sort of a tying up episode of this year and give you my 5 biggest takeaways. We're going to apply it to fitness. I'm going to apply it to muscle building and fat loss and health and stuff, because that's what we talk about in this podcast. But the kind of are just general sort of lessons that I've personally learned this year, or learned on a deeper level that I learned before, you know. So hopefully you'll find some value in this. Hopefully you'll find some cool little nuggets of information here that will help you to move forward and build more muscle, lose more fat, be healthier, and, you know, just generally be more badass in 2022. So there's 5 things I want to talk about here. So the first thing is mindset. Now, mindset is not an optional extra. This is my first lesson that I've learned, right? So here's what I've got written down. Mindset is not an optional extra. It's essential and it runs everything. You have to work on it. Okay, so now we obviously know that in order to improve our bodies, we have to work on our bodies, right? But in order to improve our mind, we also have to work on our mind. But even if that isn't a big priority for you right now, and even if you're just sort of listening to this thinking, I'm listening to this because I want to improve my body, you know, it's called Master Your Body, I want to improve my body. What I'm saying to you is, whether you care about your mindset or not, if your goal is to improve your body, you must work on your mindset because it runs everything. You know, for years and years and years, I was a tyrant to myself. I was pushing myself harder and harder and harder physically without paying any attention to what was going on mentally, and forcing myself to just keep working harder. And I couldn't understand why, you know, things kept going wrong. I kept falling off. I kept, getting injured, getting unwell. Not sticking to things properly, not sticking to diets properly, not sticking to training plans properly, whatever, you know. And this year it's been more of a, this last couple of years really, it's been more of a business sense. You know, I've been trying to push myself and work harder, you know, crank out more content, you know, be there for every single client every minute of the day, and then sometimes at night. You know, it's been like silly at times, you know, the amount I've pushed myself without giving myself any time to rest or work on my mindset as well, and wondering why it all keeps going wrong every now and again, you know. And this year I've kind of done things a little bit differently. This year I've worked on my mindset extensively, probably more than anything else. I worked on mindset probably more than my body, probably more than my business, or anything else in life. My mindset's taken 100% priority, because there's, you know, that I came to the realization that this kind of runs everything. And if you don't pay attention to your mindset, whatever you're looking for, results in your life, probably won't be as good, or you won't get as much out of them as you were hoping for, right? So the result of that for me has been way more consistent with all the things that I've been trying to achieve, both with my body, with my business, with everything in my life. Been way more consistent, and I've been happier. You know, I've just not been as anxious. I've not been as on edge with stuff. I've not been as low, and don't get me wrong, like everybody still has low days, everybody still has, days where they don't feel so great. But this year, because I've been paying attention through various things, and again, I'll probably talk about more of these and go in depth on some of the things that I've used in future podcasts over the next few weeks. But because I've been working hard and actually dedicating time to working on my mindset every single day, just like I dedicate time to working on my body every single day, it's improved, because where you put attention, put energy, that area of your life improves, right? So in my opinion, mindset runs everything. It's not an optional extra. Everybody should dedicate at least some portion of their day to working on their mindset, whether that's through a meditation practice, whether it's through journaling, whether it's through whatever, whatever it might be. Everybody should, in my opinion, dedicate some sort of time to that, because they'll see a substantial improvement in their life and in whatever they're trying to achieve. Like we talk about on this podcast, fitness or body goals, muscle building or fat loss or whatever, whatever you're trying to achieve, I 100% think that working on your mindset will help you to achieve it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is consistency. Now, consistency is more important than programming. Now, this is a more sort of obviously specific thing to fitness or to muscle building and fat loss and body composition in general. But this is what I've got written down. Consistency is more important than programming. Set the bar low. Now, the story I'm going to sort of tell to illustrate this point is one particular client, and again, I'm not going to mention them by name, but one particular client that I took on this year, he was really sort of up for doing the most advanced programming possible. He was sort of reassuring me that he could take it, like give him everything that I could. So I was trying to sort of balance what I thought was the right thing with what I thought he wanted, which he was telling me in sort of no uncertain terms. He wants to train as hard as possible and make as most progress as possible. I was like, okay, cool. So I was kind of holding him back a little bit because I didn't want him to ruin himself in the first couple of weeks because he wasn't training before this, but at the same time, I was like, right, okay, let's do this. So we spent a couple of weeks and we came up with the most advanced plans we could for his particular circumstance that I was comfortable giving him. We had a really solid plan of action that I thought was going to give him some really, really good results. But as it turned out, he just didn't stick to it, and, I'm not putting this on him. This is probably partly me as well. I probably should have made sure that what we were doing, he could stick to. So I'll take ownership of that as well. But the point is that we spent all this time putting the best plans we could possibly think of, right, in place. And what let us down wasn't the plans. The plans didn't let us down. The plans were good. What let us down was the consistency. Okay? So if you don't stick to a plan, if you don't have what it takes to do the necessary work that the plan says you need to do every single day without missing a day, and it's going to be too much of an impact on your life to follow that plan every single day, then the plan is too complex. You need to simplify the plan, because consistency is way more important than any kind of plan. Because this guy got 2 weeks into his plan and he just didn't do it anymore. He just didn't do it. So he sort of fell off the radar and I never really heard from him, and we ended up sort of parting ways, which is sad. It was disappointing. But the big lesson learned for me there was this has to be realistic. No matter what you think when you start off, you have to make sure that when the novelty of this thing wears off, when this thing is no longer new and shiny and exciting anymore, that you can still do the work required to get the result that you say that you want. Okay, now if that's muscle building, then it's going to be a long-term investment. You're going to have to, so if in 2022 you are wanting to put a certain amount of muscle mass on, you want to fill out t-shirts more, you want it to be a bit bigger and stronger and all the rest of it and all the stuff that goes along with that, then you've got to say, okay, I'm going to set a goal for the entire year, and you can break that down into chunks, of course, more manageable chunks, month by month or quarter by quarter or whatever it is, 90-day targets, whatever. But the point is, it's a long-term goal is muscle building. You're not going to get 5 weeks in and look completely, completely different. If you do it, it's going to be because of more of fat loss. It's muscle building is a long-term investment which requires consistency. You're going to have to set a target that you can be consistent every single day. So how many times is realistic for you to get in the gym? If you can't get in the gym more than 3 or 4 times a week, don't plan to get in the gym more than 3 or 4 times a week. Just make sure that the 3 or 4 times you're in the gym, you are crushing it. You are doing more in those sessions than most people do in 5 or 6 or 7 sessions a week. You are absolutely smashing it, because it's about the quality and the intensity of your workouts more than the quantity. So if you can get in the gym and absolutely crush it over 3 or 4 workouts per week, you're going to be ahead of the game from someone that's training every single day but half-arsing it, So yeah, consistency is way more important. The same thing goes for nutrition. If you don't have the time in your schedule because of work and because of other commitments with family or whatever, if you don't have the time in your schedule to commit to eating 4 or 5 or 6 meals per day, then don't fucking eat 4 or 5 or 6 meals per day, man. Don't do that. Do 2 or 3 meals per day. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, right now, I've been training for probably 13 years coming up, and right now I've done the whole 6-8 meals a day thing. I've done all that stuff before, and right now I know that my schedule is so packed that I don't have the time, the patience, the motivation even to be cooking 5, 6, 7, 8 meals a day. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? At this point in my life, I don't want to do that. But I know that there's certain principles I can follow where I can eat 3 meals a day and still maintain and increase the muscle and the physique that I have and hit the goals that I want to hit in 2022 physically, without having to compromise everything else, right? So I structure my nutrition plan and my approach to nutrition and to training appropriately according to what I know I can stick to. Now, obviously, some sacrifices, if you're starting a new thing, some sacrifices are going to need to be made, right? So you're not going to be able to just live the exact same life as you've been living and expect different results. You're going to have to compromise a little bit and make some sacrifices. But you can't expect yourself to overhaul your entire lifestyle, on a whim, on a moment's notice, because the subconscious mind will kick in and it'll stop you right in your tracks. And your subconscious mind is 95% of your entire mind. So trying to change things with your conscious mind, that 5%, it's not going to work. So make sure that you work with your subconscious mind. Make sure that you work with your body and with your lifestyle, rather than trying to swim against the tide, because your likelihood of success, if you set the bar too high, is going to be pretty low. So set the bar low, give yourself the low-hanging fruit, give yourself the most likelihood of sticking to the plan that you've set for yourself. Obviously, the plan needs to work. It needs to actually make some changes, but give yourself the biggest likelihood of success, and you'll be more likely to succeed, obviously. So yeah, that's consistency. So consistency is more important. I'm going to talk more about consistency on tomorrow's episode. I'm going to do a New Year's Day episode tomorrow, and it's going to sort of detail some of my failures on that point and why that's been one of my biggest lessons for 2021. So, but that's the second point. Consistency is more important than programming. So hopefully that makes sense. So the third one is thinking, speaking and acting like a victim guarantees you 0 results. Take responsibility and achieve greatness, right? So let me say it one more time. Thinking, speaking and acting like a victim guarantees you 0 results. Take responsibility and achieve greatness. So what does that mean? Victim mode, in my opinion, is like when you abdicate all responsibility for your own life. You abdicate all responsibility for your own results, for your own goals, for all the stuff that you're trying to achieve. And the reason in your mind then that you haven't achieved what you want to achieve is somebody else's fault, right? So it's the personal trainer's fault, it's the gym's fault, it's the COVID restrictions fault, whatever, it's your parents' fault, it's your spouse's fault, it's your kid's fault, whatever, if you're saying the reason I don't have X, Y, or Z, the reason I don't have more muscle, the reason I don't have more energy, the reason that I'm, overweight, that I've got too much body fat or more body fat than I'd like. The reason of any of these things, if you're putting that down to somebody else, then you are in victim mode. And, I'm not saying that out of trying to be harsh, because I've lived a lot of my life in that mode, so I've been there, but you've got to be aware of it. And you've got to pull yourself out of that and say, no, you've got to take ownership out of this. So there's a cool book that I'm reading to or listening to the audio version of it called Extreme Ownership, which is a book by Jocko Willink, who was a former Navy SEAL in the US and just an all-round badass guy. And he talks about, this whole thing of taking ownership over everything in your life and just taking responsibility for it. And there's people like Jordan Peterson that talk about this sort of stuff as well, taking responsibility for your own life. And it's kind of like an empowering thing, and that's a really awful word. I don't like using that word, but it is. It got to just give you some personal power back. Because once you take responsibility for all these things, you understand that you're the one who can make a difference about it. Once you say that the reason I don't have X, Y, or Z is because of somebody else, then all of a sudden, then you no longer have the power to change that situation, because you've just subconsciously reaffirmed to yourself that you have no control over that situation. You have no control over the fact that you don't have the body you want, or your mind's going down the toilet, or whatever's going on, right? You are reaffirming that to yourself. And the fact is, you do have control over this, because everything in your life, to a certain degree, you have control over. Or at least you can take responsibility for, and therefore you can make a difference to. So whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whatever it is, take responsibility for it and just say, look, this is my thing. I'm owning it, and I'm going to make a difference to it. So that's the biggest, one of the biggest things I learned in 2021 as well, or at least relearnt many times, is acting like a victim doesn't work. It guarantees you zero results, because it gives somebody else the power. Once you take the power back and you say, okay, this is my thing, you have more of a chance of making a difference to that area. Okay, so yeah, that's the third one. The fourth one here that I've got is that you can't always figure it out on your own. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a smart way to increase your speed and quality of results. So let me just say that again, because that was a bit of a mouthful. You can't always figure it out on your own. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a smart way to increase your speed and quality of results. So the way I've done this year has been through hiring 2 coaches. So I've never had a coach before in my life. I've been to many different sort of mentors and seminars and one-off little bits and bobs like that, while I've been learning over the years, while I've been learning about fitness and training and muscle building and fat loss and all the science behind everything. But I've never had like a coach where I've worked with them for a long period of time. So this year in, I think it was April this year, was the first time I took the plunge, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go and hire a coach, and I'm just going to go and do this thing. So I hired a coach. His name's Brett. If you listen to this, Brett, hello. But yeah, so I hired Brett, and it was probably the best decision I made this year, personally, because it was like somebody else who sort of got it, and somebody else who could give me some direction, and you could bounce ideas off, stuff like that. And this is a business coach, so it's not necessarily directly correlated with fitness. But I think if I'd have adopted this mindset while I was working on my body, I probably would have got to the level of knowledge that I have now much, much faster. Because the amount of mistakes I made over the last 13 years of trying to figure it all out on my own has been just obscene, like too many mistakes really, because I was just guessing, and I was just doing the same dumb shit time and time again. And we've spoken about loads of these stupid mistakes that I've made over the last 60 odd episodes of this podcast, and I'm sure you can go and listen to a bunch of them whenever you want to. But I honestly feel like if I'd have adopted that mindset of get help from somebody who's been there and done that, I would have 100% accelerated much, much faster, because they would have been able to tell me exactly what I was doing wrong and exactly how to fix it, because they'd been there and they'd done it and they'd got mistakes themselves, like I have now. So my advice to you is, if you're trying to achieve something, that is again, a physical goal, like I would imagine most people that are listening to this are trying to achieve some sort of physical goal, whether that's building muscle or losing fat or recomping your body or whatever. get some help, ask for help. That's a huge way to reduce the time it's going to take you to achieve success. Now, I understand that this costs money, it's going to cost money for you to hire a coach or a PT. You're going to have to do your homework to make sure they're not full of shit, and make sure that they actually know what they're talking about and they can actually help you. So it's not something you should just do on a whim, but I would do some research and I would ask around, ask previous clients of people, and just make sure that it's a financially sensible decision that you can make there. It's not going to add to your stress level. But if you can justify it, if you can afford it, go and get a coach, go and get a personal trainer, even if it's just for a few months, just to give you that base level of knowledge. Now, if that's not something that's feasible for you right now, which I get it, it wasn't for me for a long time, then the stuff you're doing right now, like listening to this podcast, is really, really helpful. Keep listening to podcasts, keep watching YouTube videos. They're completely free. Keep looking at the people that have been there and done it and are giving out free information, like myself and many other people on the internet who are giving out free information for you to be able to further your goals. And then, buy something lower budget, buy something like an audiobook or a book, buy something like a video course that doesn't require a massive amount of investment that you can use to get the basics and get the missing pieces of knowledge that's going to help you along your way. So that's number 4. Asking for help is a big thing that's helped me a lot this year. In my personal business, and I think it can apply to fitness as well. So the 5th and final one, and then we'll wrap this up for today, is sometimes the best way to make serious progress is by taking a step back and resting. So this came to mind particularly in the last sort of month or so. I've probably reached personally a sort of a state of like burnout with work and training and everything that's been going on. I've had some external stresses on and all different things like that. And I've just been, like I mentioned sort of at the start of the podcast, just plowing through and just being like, just get through it. And I kind of got to like the first, I think it was the first or second week. I think it was the first week in December. And I was just like, something's got to give, right? Because I was just like, I was struggling to get out of bed. At this point, for probably maybe 10 weeks, maybe 9 or 10 weeks previous, I'd been training really, really hard. I'd not had a deload or a week off training. I was getting pretty strong, but that brings its own challenges with it, right? Like I was lifting, for me, a big amount of weight, a few times a week. Like deadlifting, well, not deadlifting, but RDLing, or straight leg deadlifting kind of thing, like in excess of 200 kilos. So I was pulling 200 kilos every week, or 210, 220, I think I go up to, which again, that's not a dig measuring contest. I'm not bragging about that. It's just heavy for me, lots of other people are stronger than that, but for me, that takes a toll on my body. And then, heavy, big compound movements that were taxing on my body every week. Now, if nothing else was going on in my life, that probably would have been fine because I would have been able to recover. But like we've spoken about on this podcast before, recovery is such a massive, massive, monumental part of your training, and you're not going to grow and you're not going to make the progress you want to make if you're not recovering. And the fact is, by the end of that training block, by the end of the sort of 9th or 10th week of going at it hard and really trying to make some big gains in strength and muscle, so at the start of December this month, I'd reached that point of burnout where something had to give because I was working probably, I don't know the exact amount of hours, but I was probably doing 30 sessions a week with clients in the gym, and then all the stuff online that I do and all the extra outside of the gym work for clients like programming and diet planning and all that stuff. So it's probably sort of 60 to 80 hours average per week I was working alongside this demanding training schedule, alongside some personal stresses I had on as well with relationships and things like that. So there was a lot going on. Like, and that's not again me being victim mode. That's not me sort of saying poor me. A lot of these, if not all of these, were my own doing. But the fact is, they were all taking a toll on me, right? So I got to the point at the start of December where I was like, something's got to give. I've either got to stop training or I've got to stop working. And I knew that a lot of people were depending on me for work. So I decided to stop training. So I had 2 weeks off. And that wasn't my intention. My intention was to go right through to Christmas and then have a break of everything at Christmas. But I just got to the breaking point like probably 3 or 4 weeks too early. So I was just like, no, do you know what? I could either push through right now and end up being ill, because my body will break down, because I've done that often enough that I know that's what happens, So I could end up being ill, or I could take a step back right now, carry on working. So I've got the people who are dependent on me are getting what they're paying for, and I'm still making money and all the rest of the stuff, so I don't have the financial stress. And allow my body to recover that way. And that's what I did. So it's taken me a little bit longer to recover because I've still had some stresses on. I've still been working. I've still had the other stresses I mentioned before that I won't go into. But I allowed my body, my muscles, my joints, my nervous system to recover a little bit from the constant battering I was giving it in the gym every week, which was massive. It was massive. And now I've started training again, because I started training sort of Christmas week when everybody else was stopping and I tended to stop. But I started training after a couple of weeks off, just before Christmas, and sort of eased myself back into it. And I am stronger, substantially stronger. This was seriously like a shock to even me, to be honest. I'm substantially stronger than I was before I took the time off. Because I've allowed my nervous system time to recover. I still ate well. I slept really well. I looked after myself. The only thing I didn't do was train. So it wasn't like I lived like a slob and I just had takeaways every night and I slept like shit and I had blue light all over the place. And I still looked after myself on that time off. And when I came back to the gym, I went from, I think I was pressing 46s or 48 kilos in each hand, on the dumbbell press, on like a chest press, before I went off. And when I came back, I was pressing 50s. If somebody had told me that, if I'd listened to a podcast with somebody else saying that, my instant reaction would probably be, that's bullshit, stop lying. But I promise you it's true. So I was pressing 50s, benching 110. This is not like massively impressive numbers. I'm not trying to impress anybody with these numbers. I'm just giving you some context, but to the fact that my strength has gone up substantially due to the fact that I've had a rest. So if the thing that's stopping you from having a rest is that you're scared of losing your gains, or you're scared of losing your progress in some way, shape or form, I want to assure you that as long as you look after yourself while you are having that time off, and as long as you, make sure that the right boxes are ticked, like you're sleeping well, you're keeping your stresses low, you're eating relatively well, and your appetite will probably go down a little bit if you're not training, but that's fine. Just keep eating well. Getting a good amount of daylight every day, getting out in nature, and doing all that good stuff that we talk about sometimes, and we'll talk about more next year. As long as you're looking after yourself in that regard, then you probably won't lose any strength at all. And if you're anything like me, you'll probably go a little bit further than you were. And if you're not stronger than you were when you came back, I would probably give it like 2 weeks and you will be, because your body will just be ready to go again. Your body will just be there, ready to recharged and ready to throw everything at these weights. So that's just a little bit of a tale, a little bit of a story of what happened to me this year. And that pretty much wraps up my top 5 fitness, muscle building, business, life, fat loss, whatever lessons for 2021. So I hope that was useful. I hope there was something in there somewhere buried that maybe triggered something off in your mind, gave you some sort of idea or inspiration for how you're going to go about attacking your 2022. If there was, let me know. Drop me a message, drop me a follow on Instagram. I'm at AndyClements01, or on YouTube, where I'm going to be already have started putting more in-depth videos on there. And I'm just Andy Clements on YouTube. I don't think there's a special name for it. I think you just search Andy Clements, and you can find me on YouTube there. And yeah, let me know what you thought. And if you like this, take a screenshot of the episode, put it on your Instagram stories, tag me in it at Andy Clements01, and I'll repost it. And let's spread the word of the Master Your Body podcast and get more people listening to it. So hope that was useful, guys. Have an amazing new year. If you're listening to this in 2022 already, then happy new year to you. And I hope it's a great one for you. And I will speak to you next time on the Master Your Body podcast. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Master Your Body podcast. Just before you take off, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could take a screenshot of it on your phone and add it to your Instagram story to spread the word. If you tag me in it at AndyClements01, I'll repost it as well. Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes of the Master Your Body podcast every week, and I'll catch you next time for another episode.